interesting to me because Arlo and I met in Chicago. What year was that? Probably.
Was that 2017?
Yeah, maybe 2017.
Small Business Finance Forum.
OFN Small Business Forum. And I can't tell you how impressed I was with him. At the time, I thought, who is this young man? Talking about he just created a CDFI and had these big dreams and big vision. And now to see the trajectory and how far he's come, and frankly, how much further he's going to go. Because he has put into place a remarkable CDFI that's built on, clearly, economic justice, but also one that includes his vision, and more importantly, one that includes the priorities of the communities that he serves. So Arlo Washington is a person of faith. He's an entrepreneur. He's the CEO of a CDFI, but he's also a very humble individual. And it's my pleasure to be able to talk to you, Arlo, and talk to you about your vision.
Thanks, Donna. Thank you so much. And I'd first like to give an honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for blessing me to be here. And I give an honor to sharing the stage with Donna. And thank you to the Emerge Financial Health Network. I'm happy to be here, and thank you all for viewing the film, and I'm glad it had an impact on you. You know, there's just so much work still left to be done.
Right.
And at the end of the film, we talk about it being just a beginning. And, you know, since then, we have chartered People Trust Community Federal Credit Union. We have now almost 1,000 members. We have, you know, and we're creating now opportunities for checking accounts and savings and investing and just so many, taking a holistic approach to solving a common problem in our communities across the country. So I'm definitely happy to be here and happy to be able to share.
Mm-hmm. That's great. You know, Arlo, I think I've seen this film maybe 100 times or more, and each time it affects me the same way because I always hear the stories, certainly hear the challenges, but also hear the hope. I hear that hope, not only in your voice, but in the customers that you serve. Talk a little bit more about, and certainly you highlight this in the film, but talk a little bit more about just the systemic barriers, clearly institutional racism, other types of policies and practices that have really kept people outside of the financial mainstream.
Well, it's just, you think about things that plague low and moderate income communities. One is access to loans, access to credit. You know, credit is an asset, and if, you know, it takes credit to get credit. And one of the things that, you know, the community members that we serve, they just don't understand because they hadn't had an opportunity to be able to. There's no stores that you can do credit, you know, in the community. You know, if your furniture stores don't report your credit, the buy here, pay here dealerships don't report your credit. So, you know, I was went into a Cinnabon, and the young lady I walked in and she was just in tears. She worked there, and I asked one of our other employees, I said, why is she crying? And she said, well, she just found out that she was making her car payments all year long, and she just found out that they were not reporting her credit. And she hasn't missed a payment, so she was in tears about it. And, you know, just things like that, it's the information, access to information, that really affects, you know, low and moderate income communities. Access to checking accounts. You know, it takes credit at some banks to get a checking account, and, you know, credit is just a thing. So that's the thing that, you know, we wanted to solve for, is being able to establish a relationship with the credit bureaus to be able to report credit on those small dollar loans that, you know, oftentimes are not available in low income communities.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the others? That's certainly a great strategy. What are some of the others that you've actually implemented within your CDFI to bring more people into the financial mainstream and ensure financial health?
Well, number one is, you know, of course, our small dollar loan program. Mm-hmm. Thanks to the CDFI fund, that program has been very helpful in supporting our work. We also have developmental services that we offer, financial literacy, technical assistance for disadvantaged small businesses that, you know, fear hold them back from being able to make progress. a lot of times because of fear of rejection. There's the onboarding ramp for unbanked individual is a financial institution. And so if there's no financial institution in the neighborhood, then that is something that, creates a barrier or a challenge for these individuals to be able to access the financial system. And so our strategy was to be able to use a place-based strategy. That's why we put the container on the Barber College campus, because we started looking at the transactions at the Barber College and saw that a lot of members were just using cash. They weren't using any debit cards or any type of bank cards. They were using mostly cash. And so we said, well, we're dealing with a lot of unbanked populations, and then also, a lot of the students that were there received federal student aid. We've been doing financial aid since 2011. And we noticed that there was, the students show up to the college in need. They show up in need of wraparound services, childcare, food, transportation. And, a car is a vital asset. And so, it keeps you from being able to go and get a job or do an interview or, just go and take care of your business. And so we wanted to be able to create opportunities that would eliminate barriers for them to be able to get their education, a trade, short-term program, and then on the back end of that, provide them with the financial tools and the resources to be able to get loans and grow and expand.
Mm-hmm. And what have you seen as a result of the work that People Trust has done, just in terms of numbers, outputs, or outcomes, and ultimately, what has been the impact, do you think? Oh,
man, it's had a huge impact. One of the things is, we did a study with TransUnion and CBA, the Credit Builders Alliance, and credit scores rose by 62%. We used the tool, the fair lending tool, to be able to take a global view of our target market to be able to see, okay, where's the most economically distressed areas and neighborhoods, and we focus on those ward by ward to be able to start, putting a Band-Aid on what was happening. And we focus our efforts in this community, and that's where the credit scores rose. We also, and when the pandemic hit in 2020, when everything was shut down, we were able to be a non-bank lender through the PPP program, and thanks to the Federal Reserve for the liquidity facility, we were able to do 2,600 loans to small businesses nationwide, deploying more than $50 million in just 4 months. And so I think we got about 3 of those left that are brief, but everything went really well with that. So those small businesses, we found out where a lot of them were using, no shade to Cash App, but Cash App for their to run their business because they couldn't access a checking account. So, they then said, well, Mr., we want to be with People Trust, but so we couldn't offer them a checking account. So that was the thing where our board got together and a couple of community organizers said we need to form a depository so that we would be able to, because everything has to settle and has to tender at a bank. If your community initiative, development initiative, it can get frustrated at a traditional financial institution, because at certain stages, because, at some stages, CDFIs are the mechanisms that are needed in these communities. The CDFIs are the bank for the unbanked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to say that the CDFI, and I'm stealing this from Dave Glaser, who runs a CDFI in Missoula, Montana. He used to say that CDFIs are the on-ramp and that the financial institutions are the highway. And so our job is to move people from the on-ramp onto the highway to those financial institutions that have much more, many more products and services. And
absolutely. It's a different stage, but I think that for someone that's unbanked, that's coming from, generational poverty, that's a mentality that's passed down from generation to generation. So if my mom kept her money under the mattress, the safest place that I feel to keep my money is under the mattress. I don't care what you say. Mm-hmm. That's where you keep your money. And so, so the education is key. There was an entrepreneur that, got into a situation in operating capital, and he was afraid to refinance because he didn't want the debt. Mm-hmm. Right? He needed it, but he didn't want it. We had to explain to him, the process and help him understand that, this is going to help you to be able to build capacity, to be able to hire that employer, buy that new, truck to be able to help you to do more tows. But it was just a fear that I saw that he had, that it said, we have a lot of work to do, and it just seems like there's not enough of us, in these communities where those hard to reach, populations are.
Right, exactly. So there are about 1,500 CDFIs across the country, and at least one in every state. playing this role with a very similar mission of serving the underserved. And it's interesting to me because I think for so many, there are still questions about this model. I get questions all the time about my CDFI, like, how are you all surviving? Because this is such a subsidized model. But talk about the role of CDFIs, Arlo, and why you think it's important for the role that they play, even though it's a much smaller number, certainly, than you would see when you compare them to traditional financial institutions.
Well, CDFIs play a critical role in being conduits and access to capital and resources that wouldn't otherwise be available to low and moderate income communities. And so CDFIs, you know, one of the things that we noticed is that most of them were not accessible. They were in, you know, hard, you know, if you didn't know, you didn't know. And so that's why we wanted to be visible when we looked at all the abandoned bank buildings that were in the community that were just, you know, grass overgrown, and said, you know, if we had a bank facility, you know, because CDFIs are financial institutions, then we would be able to, the individuals in the community would be able to point to where they could get the help and get the resources that, you know, a traditional bank just probably wouldn't have the time to be able to spend. You know, it takes hours to provide technical assistance to a disadvantaged small business, maybe located in a rural community where, you know, they may not have the understanding of the financial products or the tools and resources available. So, you know, you have to, you know, I think about, you know, maybe they don't have access to internet, you know, and so it's just a critical role that CDFIs play, and all financials, everyone in this room works together. I say everybody's doing God's work, and everybody's going to heaven. But that's, you know, it's so critical, because if there's not CDFIs, then I believe that the gap will just, you know, like Scott said in the film, it continue to be a chasm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you know, again, CDFIs have been around for a long time. Certainly certified CDFIs have been in place since the 1990s. And I think we've all done efforts to raise the visibility, to promote the work that we do across the country. But in many ways, this film just put CDFIs on steroids, the industry on steroids. I think for the first time for a lot of people, they said, oh, this is what a community development financial institution does. This is what they are. This is what they're focused on. And I think it's very aspirational, frankly, because I think every CDFI in this country should aspire to do so many of the things that you are doing now. So this leads me to this question, because all of a sudden Hollywood calls Arlo Washington. Here you are in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Who would have thunk it?
Doing your business, minding your business. Yeah. So how did all that come about, and what was it like to have folks like the director,
John Hoffman and Christine Turner?
Yeah.
That was something that we got a call. Of course, John Hoffman and Christine Turner, and thanks to PayPal, Mass Mutual, and Andrew Niku Foundation for their support in the creation of this film. And you know, they reached out, they did research, reached out, and got in contact with you, and you told them about a barber that had a CDFI on his parking lot. And so, and they gave me a call, and then we had a couple of Zoom meetings, and at first, you know, we didn't want to be put out there for exploiting our community members, and so, but we then looked at it and said, you know, well, if we could, but so many people didn't know about the work or knew about the acronym, what is CDFI, and so we said, well, if we could put some color on it and make it plain to where, you know, people could understand and it's palatable, then it would be worth it, because it would help advance equity, not just in our community, but across the country. And so it took 400 hours of shooting, you know, the whole year, and it was just, you know, it was a process, to say the least, but, you know, here we are, and they came up with a great piece of work that, you know, has impacted, you know, folks across the globe. You know, we've gotten calls from, you know, London, from, you know, Belgium, from all over the place, of people wanting to know how they can start CDFIs or how they can, you know, do this work in their community, because a need, you know, is in demand, and it's a pent-up demand is there, and people want to solve for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's this old adage about it takes a village, and you talked a little bit about this in the film, too. Just talk a little bit about what that partnership should look like with banks and credit unions and others, and CDFIs. What are some of the successes that you've seen, and what do you think those traditional financial institutions need to do more of?
Invest, collaborate, support the work of CDFI loan funds in particular, because they're really flexible. All CDFI work is important, but I believe that the loan funds have the mechanisms to be able to create revolving loan funds in these communities that would be able to do loans that can report to the credit bureaus and build credit, and create opportunities to start businesses, purchase homes, and so I believe that every financial institution plays a critical role. Traditional financial institutions can be supportive in terms of when we do move community member on into mainstream finance to support and understand and let them know that you can get a checking account. And then you have the Community Reinvestment Act. Participate with that. Talk to your CRA, Community Reinvestment Act compliance officers about strategies. Be open-minded to opportunity, and that's the way we get the breakthroughs in our community, is when we all work together.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's true. And so you've clearly created this loan fund. You've now which was focused on small business lending. You've created a credit union that is focused on consumer lending as well, and I think you all do mortgages too.
No,
right?
not yet. We do. We're under right now. We're just doing car loans, auto loans, and consumer loans.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, what's next for People Trust? What would you like to see? What's your vision?
Well, we'd like to see, of course, in business, if you don't grow, you die. So we want to continue to grow and expand our operations. We want to work with other groups in other economically distressed parts of our country to be able to, if they need a People Trust in their community, then we'd like to, help make that happen, because, with technology and all the advancement, you're able to have far reach and create more impact.
Mm-hmm. Great. Arlo, what does your family think about all this? I'm just kind of curious because...
Don't get me started on that. If my wife was here, my kids was here, they'd have a lot to say to me after I got off the stage. But, they care about the cause, and we have the conversations often about the work, because I have to travel quite a bit. I'm away from home. I'm at the office, late nights, and a lot of times, we have to have hard conversations about what matters in life, and the work that we do is not what you can do for yourself, but it's what you can do for others that matters, and that's what they've accepted, and my daughter is in. She's a head teller at the credit union, and so she wanted to go into community development finance. She's seen me doing it, and she's like, "Dad, I want to do something like that with my life," and I was so happy to hear. So, they've embraced this journey with me.
Mm-hmm. And I suspect that your mother had a lot to do with that as well. You speak very movingly about just her principles and what she instilled in you, and that's giving to others as well.
Oh, absolutely. My mother was a social worker for the Department of Human Services, so I saw a lot of, care for families that, foster kids and family member people that was in the community, because we lived in a housing project, but there was, it was a lot of people in the community she was friends with, and she used to encourage them that, they didn't have to settle for where they were, and that there was, there's still hope. So, being a beacon of hope is something that my mother was that inspired me to continue the legacy, after she passed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, again, it's really important to look at that lineage and to look at the thread, the strength that comes from that. I think everybody in this room, in some way or another, is focused on financial health, regardless of whether it was something that was born out of their own upbringing or community, or certainly the work that folks are doing day in and day out. There's this saying, I stole it from somebody. I didn't make it up myself, but there's that old saying about rising tide lifts all boats, And somebody said, but you've got to make sure people have a boat first. And I think that that is what you do. That's what you do at People Trust. You're looking to make sure that people have a boat. And I think that that's a mission all of us take very seriously, that we don't take that for granted, that that is the beginning of the important path that people need to take to get to financial health. You said the wealth gap is real.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's another thing that, traditional banks can understand, that there is a wealth gap. There is, and that is, a gap in information, a gap in understanding, a gap in their, in finances, and it's important that we understand the cultural differences, when you think about generational wealth and what I understand or what someone experienced in generational poverty, those are two different ends of the spectrum. So we have to understand that there's and CDFIs are that bridge and that gap in the middle to help tie the two, bring them both together. And so, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for growth and equity to be advanced in communities, when we have an understanding of the need and of the opportunity to be able to make a change.
That's great. I am so glad I met you, Arlo Washington.
The feeling is mutual.
I wish you all the best. I think
Thank
your
you.
future is bright.
Thank
and
you.
I think the future of People Trust and so many of the people that you serve in Little Rock and elsewhere is so critical, so much an important part of what you do. So thank you.
Thank you,
very
Donna.
much. And
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for this
Thank you all.
podcast.
Thank you so much.